Rockstar Games presents Table Tennis, geez, that's a mouthful, was released May 23rd, 2006, just 6 months after the Xbox 360 launched, and was Rockstar San Diego's first release for the newest generation of gaming. The title was exclusive to the Xbox 360 for 3 years before appearing on the Nintendo Wii. The Wii version was fairly well received, but the star of the show here is clearly the 360 version, scored higher by most publications with IGN being the exception, giving both versions a 7.8 out of 10. The game, as you might have guessed, is all about Forrest Gump's favorite sport: ping pong, table tennis, clip clap, whiff waff. Which kinda sounds like Elmer Fudd talking about a grown man pushing 40 with grills. Whiff waff. When thinking about games I wanted to cover for the channel, table tennis was high on the list, and I'm really curious to see how well it holds up in the 15 years since its release. It's been, I don't know, like 10 years since I've played it, so this is gonna be pretty fresh to me. On first appearances, the premise alone is odd considering that this game seems far out of Rockstar's usual contemporary territory. Known for expansive worlds and over-the-top storytelling, Rockstar's usual affair typically consists of a giant sandbox with tons to do, larger-than-life set pieces, and characters with huge personalities and just Rockstar's own unique brand of ennui, satire, and charm. Nothing like that is on display here, as everything about table tennis eschews their established brand image and treats a high-octane, popular, yet relatively fringe sport with all the deference and respect of a AAA sports title like Madden or 2K. All while giving us a technically deep, complex gem with charm that feels so competitive it almost feels like it could fit right into today's esports landscape. Table tennis had much simpler beginnings, starting as a tech demo for their latest development, the Rockstar Advanced Gaming Engine, or RAGE for short. RAGE would eventually power most of their games from then on, LA Noire notwithstanding. No, for LA Noire they went with a custom motion scan engine to really show off and sell its mastery of realistic facial expressions, integral to the game's police interrogation concept. As for the graphics, I mean, come on. This game came out 15 years ago and it still looks fantastic. A true and shining example of the power of the Xbox 360 and a marvel for an early next-gen release in 2006. The presentation is top-notch and doesn't really do much to really date the game whatsoever. I feel like this is possible because it feels pretty light on resources, the majority going to the players and the table. Because of that, it has all the opportunity to be super pretty, even after all this time. Other 360 titles using the RAGE engine, including Grand Theft Auto 4 and Red Dead Redemption, had entire open-world maps to account for. The entirety of table tennis could fit into a minigame in GTA 4. So it feels like there's a ton more graphical fidelity. I just can't talk about it enough, it looks great. On the topic of table tennis, Rockstar co-creator Sam Houser said the objective was to create a sports game with the intensity of a fighting game and the sense of speed and control that would make it playing a more intense and more visceral experience than previously been possible with sports games. In this, they succeeded undoubtedly well. Before table tennis, the most intense and visceral sports games tended to be exaggerated representations of sports like NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, and NBA Street. You could probably even throw Burnout in there. And these games did so with exaggerated and larger-than-life execution. Table tennis manages to make the bare essence of the sport exciting while keeping a sense of realism and style that even the most popular sports titles could still aspire to. It does so by creating a personal setting, really focusing on the excellent character models, their every move, and yes, even their real-time sweat. Real-time sweat, people. Talk about giving the player supreme control and immersion. It really just sucks you in immediately. The atmosphere creates an intimate look into a celebrated sport with highly flawless presentation. The game puts you paddle first into the fray, giving you a selection of characters representing countries across the globe, and hey, that's not unlike Street Fighter. See? Tying it back to the fighting game dynamic they were going for. I don't know much about the competitive table tennis scene, but it always seemed like a very faithful and respectful adaptation of the sport. Something we've never really seen in gaming and something we definitely haven't seen since. The rules seem to follow international regulations, so you get the standard experience. First to 11 wins. Alternate side serves every 2 points. No volleys, as in no hitting the ball out of the air until it hits your side of the table, though the game doesn't seem to allow you to do that anyway. So with that said, let's get into the gameplay. It's nothing short of fantastic. I think I keep saying this over and over and over. The face buttons, or alternatively directions on the right stick, represent the type of spin you can hit the ball with, being top spin, back spin, left spin, and right spin. You can tell which sort of spin the ball is hit with by a colored indicator surrounding the ball while in play, and you can even counterspin by hitting the ball with the same kind of spin your opponent just used. Use the left bumper to tap the ball lighter, slowing down your rallies and possibly keeping your opponent guessing. You can control the flow of the ball by using the left stick to guide it to the section of the table where you want it to land. The controller will vibrate heavily to indicate you're going off table, so you'll have a small window to course correct. As you exchange rallies with your opponents, good returns will fetch you some focus meter, found next to your player's score. Focus shots slow the action down and add extra spin and power to your next return, and when used well can throw your opponent off balance to set up a point or just add enough power to blast the ball past them. You get an exceptional toolkit, and the gameplay feels alive and slick from the moment a game starts. Initially, you aren't really prepared for how dynamic table tennis really is. There's a rhythm to it. The sound design is an exclamation point to the excellence of this game. As the round starts, silence reigns over the arena. The hollow clang of a ball and impact, exertion and grunts from competitors. As you play and engage in a longer rally, around the 10th or so exchange, the bouncy light techno music kicks in and it becomes like a performance, or a dance. It builds like a wave. It goes a long way to get the player into the game. Who's gonna falter? Who's gonna screw up first? The answer is almost always me. I think the best way to demonstrate what I mean is to just show you a rally that I had with a computer opponent.
Cassidy with the serve.
The biggest gripe I have with gameplay is that at times it feels like playable characters are a bit too slow to movement or just plain stiff. Like I previously said, it relies heavily on rhythm, so maybe I'm just screwing up when I'm off it. It's not a consistent feeling either. I personally also tend to move around a lot, possibly more than necessary, which can lead to exposed corners, little slip-bys, and getting straight up plowed by the ball. The game is nothing if not tough, like frustratingly difficult. It gets my blood boiling in a way I don't really experience with games anymore, but that's probably because I've also been on my single player bullshit for a minute. The only way to get good is punishing trial and error. And as expected, it only gets more punishing on higher difficulties. The phrase easy to pick up, difficult to master seems to end up in a lot of my scripts, or at the very least gets knocked around a lot, but frankly, this game definitely earns the most appropriate use of the term thus far. The basics are so easy and welcoming, almost deceptively so. Then you realize you can manipulate the ball with different spins, directional and power inputs in mostly real time, and it becomes a true battle, a genuine challenge. Honestly, if you're doing it right, your butthole is clenched from sheer competitive tension, whether you're playing against a PC or your friend for some old-fashioned local 1v1. The roster of characters is a very unique and competitive bunch too. They really play to their stats. You have to approach all of these opponents very differently. You can't play against Liu Ping the same way you play against Jesper or Cassidy, at least if you plan on winning. For example, Liu Ping is a powerful and accurate opponent. He will hammer you until he makes an opening, then immediately try to capitalize on it, usually to great effect. Jesper, on the other hand, at times feels like he's playing against himself. He's all power with noticeably low accuracy and will often hit the ball out of bounds on his own. You can play a bit more aggressively against Luke because he's a more passive player. He very rarely seems to rely on power and seems to thrive in longer rallies. You can hammer the ball at him more safely than most, he's just really soft. Carmen, however, is a fucking monster. Honestly, I've lost a lot of games, but none more than to her. She is just an impenetrable wall, to an entirely frustrating degree. No game is complete without some sort of unlockables, and this game has plenty. But they're all cosmetic, so there's no real incentive for you to get the red polo jersey as opposed to the blue polo jersey. Or really the shocking amount of arenas they seem to have, which, honestly doesn't matter to me because it's the same game no matter how you slice it. The arenas really aren't distinct enough for me to care about them. It's there, but it's sort of wildly unnecessary. There's a ton of product placement in the game too, to a distracting degree. It's par for the course in a sports game, so it's neither here nor there, I guess. It's just noticeable because I'm not at all familiar with ping pong companies, and I honestly thought Killer Spin was made up, but lo and behold, it's real. You really do learn something new every day. Sometimes it's just not all that interesting. But overall, Rockstar Table Tennis holds up remarkably well and is still a fantastic, frenetic, and fun game that I bet would look amazing on a Series X. I'm still playing on the 360, but I'd be willing to bet money it looks amazing. If you've never tried it, I can still wholeheartedly recommend it. It's that solid. Go on eBay, find a copy. Give this game a resurgence, go nuts. Hey dudes, as always, thank you so much for watching. Every video I make is an absolute pleasure and helps me keep a bit more sane, and I'm honestly having a blast. Remember, if you like what you saw, please don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button. It does a big help. I'm super close to my goal of 100 subs, and I'll really feel a lot better when I can finally have my channel name front and center. I've got some more non-skate videos in my pipeline, as well as my usual bread and butter, and I'm absolutely doing another top 5 gaming moments video at the end of the year. You guys have a lovely day. Earthskate signing off.